Terumah. It speaks about making a sanctuary for God. And God will dwell amongst the people through making that sanctuary. Let's get right into it. Got it? We are, second reading of the Torah portion, Shmois, Exodus chapter 25, verse 17. So we're continuing with the Ark of the Covenant. So here's a beautiful picture, by the way. Look at this beautiful picture. Right? 3 parts. The gold on the inside, right? The wood, acacia wood, the gold, and here is the diadem, the rim, right? And here are the two poles with the hooks to put them through and put it all together, right? Now what we're going to speak about is this right over here. We're going to speak now.
Is that how it looks like? Or
no, it's just showing the different parts because.
But I'm saying, but they're inside each other.
Yeah, they're inside each other, exactly.
Oh.
Now we're going to speak about the kruvim, the cherubs, and the cover, which is the kapiros. Okay? So let's get right into that. Okay. Basisa, and you shall make kapiros a lid, zahav tahar, pure gold. Amasayim v'chetzi, it is 1.5 arka, its length. Ba'ama v'chetzi rachba, and 1.5 is its. Oh, sorry, I read it wrong. Oh my gosh, I think I need a coffee. It's okay. That won't help. Amasayim, 2.5. I'm reading it. How could it be 1.5 and 1.5 when it's 2.5 by 2.5? Because I didn't read it right. Okay, so it's 2.5, its length, and 1.5 is its width, right? Which kind of makes sense. Let's see Rashi. And 17. Kapiros, a lid, kisui shel al aren. So this word kapiros, which is a new word that we have, it means it's a covering for the aron. Shahaya pasuach milamayla, because the aron was open on the top. Omenicha elav kimin daf, and it was laid upon it like a board, right? A board that's covering it. Amasai mechetzi arka, 2.5 is its length of amos. The ka'arka shalarin, which is the length of the aron. And the width was 1.5, so therefore was made 1.5. Our bottom, and it rested on the thickness of the walls of the ark. So in other words, it was on top, right? It didn't fit inside of it. It wasn't like a little eighth of an inch less, so it would go inside. It fit on top of it, right? Follow what I'm saying? Like, in other words, it didn't go like this. It went like this, right? So it was on the thickness of the walls. Even though the Torah does not give a measure for its thickness, but our sages, they say that it was a handbreadth, like 3-4 inches, like this. That's the thickness of it. That's pretty thick, right? Because we're talking about pure gold, right? Okay, how does Rashi get that out of here? I'm not certain. Okay, Vasisa Shnayim Kruvim, and now you shall make 2 Kruvim, 2 cherubs, Zahav, that are made from gold, Miksha Taseh. You have to make a miksha. Miksha means hammered out. In other words, you're not soldering it together, right? The pieces, like make the wings and make the face and solder it together. No, it's from one piece, you're going to hammer it out. which is quite a job, obviously, right? And they should be beaten out from both ends of the lid. Rashi 18, kruvim. So there's a new word, right? Demus partsuv tinoik lahem. So Rashi says it's an image of a child's face. Okay. Mikshatase, beaten shall you make it. Shaloi taseh b'nifnei atzmon. Don't make it separately, pieces. And attach them to the ends of the lid after you made it. In other words, it's coming as part of the lid itself, right? In other words, don't do it like metal workers would do it. In other words, in the old French, what he called it? Solder, right? To solder. But you have to need a great deal of gold from the outset of making the lid. And you have to strike it in the middle with a hammer and a mallet. And thereby the ends of the solid piece of gold protrude upward. And then shape the kruvim at the ends. Wow, imagine what a job that was. Miksha, beaten, in Old French, batetic. Batetic. Kemoy, dal nakshin. That you're knock against here, against there, to carve it out. Seisa kaperis, ends of the lid, roshei kaperis. The ends of the lids. Okay. 19. I'm not clear. Is it like, what if there was a little extra? What did you do? Was it taken out, or every piece had to be used? Not clear from what it says over here. Okay. Number 19. Ase kruv echad, and you should make one cherub from one end of this, or kruv echad, and one cherub from this, meaning from one end, one, and one from the other end. Min ha-kapayris says a kruvim, from the lid you should make the kruvim al shnei ktsoisav, on its two ends. Sounds a little repetitive. Let's see what Rashi says. I'll say kruvecha mikotzer. Because in the previous verse it said make it from both ends. What is this now adding? Let's see what Rashi says. You shouldn't say there are two cherubs on each side. Because he says, make two from both ends. So does it mean two at both ends? Or one from both ends? From the first verse, it might not be so clear. So this verse comes and say, make one from each end. So you shouldn't say there's two cherubs at each end. Therefore, the verse had to say one cherub from each end. Why didn't it just add that word echad? Okay, I don't know. And make it from the lid. You should make the kruvim itself from the lid itself. And this is the explanation what it means to beat it out. You shall make it. So you should not make it separately from the lid and then attach it to the lid. Make it from the lid. In other words, the previous verse, you don't know you make it from the lid. I said that, right? But from the previous word, if you look at the words, I said something that was not really in those words. It just says to make the kruvim hammered from one piece. But it didn't say from the lid. This verse is adding to say hammer it from the lid itself. So in other words, the lid and the kruvim are going to be all one piece. No soldering of pieces together. Okay? Yeah, that's clear? Got it? Okay, excellent.
Wait, the lids and the cruvim.
Here. Let me in the picture. Let me show you in the picture.
It's one piece.
All of this is one piece. From the first verse, you know that this and this have to be one piece, right?
But they're attached. The two cruvim are attached. It looks like they're attached.
Yeah. So, but you might think that you attach it to the lid from the first verse. Comes this verse to tell us no. Okay.
And the two cruvim are also attached.
They're
Yeah.
touching. They're not
They're,
attached.
they're touching
They're
or they're attached?
touching.
They're touching.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're attached to the lid. That's where they're
But they're
attached.
not attached to each other.
No.
Maybe he needs Shimon Lev. You need one. Oh, you have one.
Okay.
No, I don't think it was molded. Well, maybe it was a mold, but he had to make the faces, the cruvim,
Okay.
that he had to like draw on it or sculpt it or whatever.
There's no mold. It's all hammered.
Oh,
Hammered.
It's all hammered.
Hammered.
We said that very clearly, hammered, right?
It's all hammered.
We said very clearly, hammered,
Oh,
right? The verse said very clearly that it's hammered, right?
yeah.
I mean, I even asked the question if there's like an extra piece, like, after you have, like, it seems like every piece of the gold had to be hammered and used. And there wasn't like, you took off a piece.
There wasn't any leftover.
It's not clear from here, but that's my understanding. Okay, let's go further. We're good so far? Right? Verse 20. V'haya kruvim, and the cherubs would be parsei knafayim, spread out wings. Parsei means spread. Knafayim is wings. Lamaila above. Seichachim b'kanfeim, that they are like hovering. Seichachim is like hovering. B'kanfeim, with their wings, ala kapiris, over the lid. U'pneihem, and their face, ish el achiv, a man to his brother, meaning facing each other, in other words, right? Ela kapiris iu pnei akruvim, and towards the lid shall be the faces of the kruvim. Okay, I don't know what that's adding. Let's see Rashi. Parsi cannot find. Rashi doesn't seem to pick up on that because obviously, if you're facing each other, then you are facing towards the lid. Parsi cannot find the wings spread. Shaloi tase kanfehem sheichavim. You should make their wings lying down. Ela pruvzim gvayim lamayle etzol rashehem. But rather they should be spread and raised high next to their heads. There should be a space between the wings and the lid, 10 tvachim. Yidisa Besukkah, as in the tractate. Look over here. See over here? This is 10 tvachim. This is a tefach, so 10 of these. So that means this is quite big, right? This is like 40 inches. It's like 30 to 40 inches is the cholol, is the space over here. So look how high their wings have to go, right? It's quite a large piece. Rashi doesn't pick up. I have a difficulty with the end of the verse that it says that that it says their faces to each other. So if their faces to each other, obviously, and they're both at the ends, so obviously they're over the lid, right? So what does it mean to the lid, their faces of the kruvim? It's kind of... Okay, 21.
Well, what's your question? I didn't understand.
The last words of the verse, right? It says, Ela kapiris iyu pnei akruvim. Towards the kapiris will be the face of the kruvim, right? As opposed to backs to the outside of the kruvim, right? In other words,
Right,
instead of their face going this way,
right.
right, it's this way.
Yeah.
But if it said already they're both at the ends and they're facing each other, then obviously that's what the verse already said that. So this seems to be redundant. And Rashi doesn't pick it up. Okay, 21. Benisata esa kaperis. And now, what are you going to do with this kaperis? We just said to make a kaperis. We didn't say what its purpose or what its function is. Actually, I shouldn't say that. We said it was the same size as the whatchamacallit, so therefore it was to fit on the top of, we already learned that. Okay, thank you very much. Shmuel.
Coffee?
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you. Okay, so Nasat is a kapiris, and you place the lid ala aron on the aron milamayla from above, the ala aron titain, and to the aron titain you shall place, you'll give, as edus, the testimony asher alecha that I will give to you. Rashi in 21. Elan titain edus, and the aron should put on the testimony. Lo yudaiti lama nichbal. I don't know why this is repeated. We said this yesterday. If you recall, we said it in yesterday's teachings in verse 16. We're in verse 21, but yesterday it was said, as the edus, so you're going to put the aron into the aron, the testimony. The yesh lemar, possibly we could answer the question, that this was going to say that to teach us that while the aron is alone, below kapayis, without a lid, maybe you have to put first the testimony into it. And then afterwards you should put the lid upon it. How else would it go inside?
What does that mean? By the
How else would it go inside?
What is the testimony?
The luchos,
The
the tablets.
Oh, the
Right.
locals. Oh, for the Ten
tablets
Commandments.
Tablets. Yeah.
When
So what is this saying? I don't know. Afterwards you put the lid upon it.
there's no other way to do it. You can't put something inside a box before, and then put the lid on before that. Or put the lid on after you put something in the box.
So, okay, one of the commentaries say that you put the lid on first, and then like slide the lid a little open to put the luches in. So we found that when they set up the Mishkan, it says that you put the testimony into the Aron, and only afterwards, as the verse says, then you put the lid on top of it. Okay. Since everything is so precise, and especially in the Holy of Holies is really precise, right? So that means put it on first, the cover, so the aron is complete as an aron. Then open it, and then slide in the luches, the tablets.
And this was in the Holy of Holies, in the Mishkan.
In the Holy of Holies,
in
yeah,
the
yeah.
Holy of Holies.
Yeah.
And later on, it was in the Beis Hamikdash in the Holy of Holies.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Exactly. Okay, 22. I don't know what's going on there. No one's coming. Okay. 22. V'nedaiti l'cha, and I will make myself known to you. Sham, there. In other words, it's going to be where God is going to reveal Himself, right? V'dibarti itcha, and I will speak to you. Me'al ha'kapayris, from upon the kapayris, mi ben shnei hakruvim, between the two kruvim, asher al-aron, which is upon the aron, ha'edus, of testimony, eskol asher atzave oschan, everything that I will command you, el b'nei Israel, to b'nei Israel. Okay, Rashi is going to bring here. Interesting. Let's go. B'nei daiti, and I will arrange over there. I will make myself known. When I fix a time to speak with you, that's where I'm going to speak to you. That's where I'm going to have my audience with you. Because I will come there to speak to you. I will speak to you from atop the lid. Now, Rashi is going to bring a contradiction. That we're going to see contradiction on where God is speaking to us, or speaking to Moshe, not to us, not to Moshe. Okay, so follow very carefully. Here we say, where is God speaking to Moshe? From upon the lid, right? Between the two kruvim. But elsewhere it says, and that's going to be in Vayikra in Leviticus, that Hashem spoke to him, to Moshe, from the tent of meeting. And the tent of meeting is the part of the Mishkan outside of the Pareches. In other words, where the area behind the Pareches, here. This is the Pareches. This is the here's the Aron is over here. And here is a curtain, right? So from the tent of meeting means outside of this, right? So here we just said it's from inside here. Now we're saying in a different verse in Vayikra in Leviticus says from outside over here. It's a contradiction, right? Okay. So we have two verses that contradict each other. Comes the third verse and resolves the conflict. And it says that Moshe, when he comes to the Oyel Moed, the Ishma is koil, and he will hear the voice that's speaking, Elav to him, that is coming from the lid of the Are. So this is the way it happened. Moshe would enter into the Mishkan, right? The Mishkan, meaning the first part, the holies, right? Not into Holy of Holies. When he first comes into the holies, right? He would enter there. When he entered into the entrance, a voice would descend from heaven, and it would go through the kruvim. And from there it would go up, and Moshe would hear it in the tent of meeting. So Moshe was not in the Holy of Holies when God spoke to him. One of the ways we also know is because the Holy of Holies, one person goes there, the Kohen Gadol, one day of a year, right? On Yom Kippur. So Moshe would come in here, would come in here, this entrance over here, right? He would be in the Holies, where he's allowed to be, right? And God would speak to him there. How? It would come through the kruvim, but he would hear it inside. Okay. Continuing in 22, and everything that I command to the children of Israel. There's a vav over here that's extra and superfluous. There are many like that in the Torah. In other words, and that which I command you. Why is there an and over here that's connecting to the previous thing? It's a new idea. And this is how you should explain it. And that which I will speak to you there, there's been Israel who is that all that I command you pertaining to the children of Israel. Okay, 23. Now we're going into the shulchan. The shulchan is the table. This is the shulchan over here, just to show you. Okay, this is what we're going into, where the showbread was, right? Asisa shulchan, and you should make a table. Atse shitim made from acacia wood. Shitim wood amasayim arka. It's 2 is its length. Ba'ama, and 1 cubit is rachba, is its width. Ba'ama v'chetzi kaimasa, and it's 1.5 high. Rashi in 23, Kaimosa, its height, Geva Raglav, Im Aviv HaShulchan, the height of its legs along with the thickness of the tabletop. Now there's legs over here, and this is a tabletop, right? All of that is 1.5. And then you have this part over here that's in addition. Okay, 24. V'tzipisa is a zav tar, and you should overlay it. Tzipisa means to cover it, like an overlay of over the wood. In other words, zav tar, pure gold. Vasisa loy zer zav saviv, and you should make for it a rim also of gold. Can't see it so well in the picture over here, but there's a little rim over there. Okay.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
what do you think they use to make the gold plate, I guess, plating stick to the wood 3,000 years ago?
I don't know. Let's see if Rashi deals with it.
I'd be curious.
Thank you very much. All right.
Amen.
Okay, let's see. There's a gold rim, similar Keser Malchus, is a symbol of the royal crown. A symbol of the royal crown. Shashulchan Shem Oisher Ugdula, because the Shulchan expresses wealth and greatness. Kamesha Emrim, as it said, like set a table, Shulchan Malachim, set a table for kings. Okay? By the way, here in this picture over here, you could see like a little, maybe more the rim. I don't know if you could see it. It's a bit small also. There's a little rim over here. Okay, but this is the bottom part that we're talking about till now, right? On top of it is going to be more. Let's continue. 25. And you should make for it misgeres, a frame, toifach savi, 1 tefach around, vasisa zer zov, and you should make from it a golden rim, the misgarte, for its frame, saviv, all around. Okay, let's see, 25 in Rashi. Misgeres, a frame, kitargumai gedafna. As Uncle translates, an enclosure. There's a dispute over here by the sages. Some say that it was above, surrounding the tabletop. Like the border along the edge of noblemen's tables. Like here, this picture over here shows it. Like there's this rim around it. Okay, that's one way to look at it. And other sages say, Lamata haisa tekua miregel laregel, that it was below the table, set in a place from the leg to leg. Barbar ruchis hashulchan, and the 4 sides of the table, and a slab of the table that lies up on it. So here, this is, you can't see so well, but this is like just a frame in this one. This one's a whole slab. So some say it's a whole slab, and some say it's just a frame. Okay. And others from this verse, well, we learned this yesterday, right? In Torah studies, this idea of the debate. He says there's make it a golden rim for its frame. Omar, and this is what we already mentioned, Lamaila, in the preceding verse. And this is just telling us that it's on the frame. Okay. 26. Pasisa is Asisa, and you shall make. Oops, sorry. sorry. Asis loy arba tabois azavin, you shall make for it 4 rings of gold. And the satis tabois el arba apeyos ashel arba ragla. And you should put the 4 rings, place them in the 4 corners, the 4 legs. Here, 4 rings, 2 over here and 2 on the other side, and the pole will go through it, similar to the R-ring, right? 27. Le'umas hamizgeres, opposite to the frame, tiena hatabois, will be the rings, lavatim lavadim, they will be as housing the lavadim. Lavadim are the poles. Laseis is a shulchan, to carry the shulchan. Rashi 27. Lumas mizgeres tiena hatabois. So the rings shall be be opposite the frame. What does that mean? So inserted into the table's legs, sent over against the ends of the frame. See over here, it's on the frame itself, right? It's not below this frame over here. Okay. It's not on the slab on top of it. It's on the frame itself. Yeah. And so the rings, they should house to insert the poles. Levatim, for housing. The Terumah levadim, the purpose of housing the poles. Ketargumai, astra la richya. Okay. 28. Vasisa, and you shall make esa badim ateshitim. So these badim are the staves or the poles. You make them from acacia wood. It's a pisa, and you will cover it oisam them zahav, with gold. It's interesting. It doesn't say pure gold, but it says gold. The nisabam is a shulchan, and they will carry with them the table. Rashi in 28. V'nisabam, and they shall carry, and they shall be carried through them. Lashon nifal. This is a passive verb. The nisabam is a shulchan, that the shulchan, the table, will be carried by means of them. 29. Vasisa, now you shall make ka'aroisav, dishes, v'kapoisav, and spoons, v'ka'asoisav, and tubes, manakiyoisav, and supports, asher yusach bahem, that will be covered. Yusach is covered by him. Zav tahor, pure gold. Taseh oisam, you shall make them. Let's see, 29. Vasis ka'aroisav v'kapoisav, you shall make dishes and spoons. Ka'aroisav, zedfus, dishes, refers to the form shahaya also kitfus halechem, that's made in the form of the bread. Well, I'll show you a picture of this. Okay. The bread was made in the shape of a box, open on 2 sides. Shulaim loy lamata, and it had a lower surface at the bottom. And they would bend up the bread upwards to its end. They would form something like a wall. That's why it's called a bread with faces, meaning surfaces. So they picked up the bread, so like folded it over, so it had like a front to it, like a face to it.
Which pasuk is this? A little bit mixed on.
In the Rashi 29,
Rashi 29. Yeah.
551.
Okay. had walls to it. That's why it's called lechem apanim. Sheish papanim v'roim lekan lekan. It has a surface to it, looking both ways. Let's say the bias mizeh from both sides in the Beis Hamikdash from either direction. V'nois an arka l'rachbei shel shulchan, and you would place the length of the bread across the width of the shulchan. The koislav is gufim keneged svasav shulchan, and the walls of the bread will be standing upright directly above the edge of the shulchan. So it's a picture over here.
It says that when you bake it, it's baked in the iron, and then you put it in the gold.
Yeah.
That's what Rashi says. So what would be so where is the iron? So I mean, they bake it in a separate place.
Here, it's this is where it's going into, and you see how this is like, it's a raised piece. So the bread was like, raised, and it had a front over here, and a front over here on the back side. So on either side, right, you would have a face of the bread.
But Rashi says that when you bake it in something with iron.
Yeah, well, let's take a step at a time. You're going ahead.
Oh, okay.
You're going ahead. Okay. Okay. The golden form and the iron form were made for each bread. It was baked in an iron form, right? So it was baked in a form, right? In an iron form. It wasn't baked on the shulchan. The shulchan only held the bread, right? It was baked in one of the lishkas. It was baked. When it was taken out of the oven on Friday, it was put in a golden one until the following day on Shabbos. And then they were arranging on the shulchan on Shabbos. And that form is called a dish. These over here, all of these over here, they're forms. These are the golden ones. They were baked in iron ones, taken out of the iron ones on Friday and put into these, right? And then placed on Shabbos, or replaced the old ones that were.
But where was the iron?
The iron was used only for the baking.
So the iron was a separate.
Was separate.
It was a separate place.
Separate place. It's not part of the shulchan. These pieces were all made from gold. Okay. Kapoisav, it's spoons. These were bowls that frankincense, that incense was put into. There were two of them for the two handfuls of the incense that would be put on 2 stacks of bread. That you would put the stack of pure incense. So this is the piece over here, and where it was put again, it was put on each of these, like, because there are two sections here, right? So put over here and over there. I don't know if it means it was just put on top. That's the way I understand it. Ksaisav, and the tubes. They are hollow, half-reed split along their length. And they would make these objects in their shape, and they shape like a split reed out of gold. And they were arranged 3 of them above the top of each bread. That one bread should rest on top of those reeds, and that would separate between one bread and another bread, in order air should circulate between them. That way they would not become moldy. In Arabic, the hollow is called kusya. Okay. Oops. The supports that should be understood like Targum, Machlose, and its bearers. Hayu Snifim Kimin Yisaides Zav, there were branches like golden pegs, columns of sorts of Aimdim, Ba'aretz, Vigabayim Ad Lamaila, Halashulchan Arbe, and they would stand on the ground and rising considerably above the tabletop. Keneged Goiva Marechos Alechem, in line with the height of the stack of bread. These pieces over here, and here's a picture of it. These over here is what we're talking about now, right? So they kind of like held the frame of these. These were where the breads were in, right? Yeah, sorry. Okay, I think we said all this. Then there were 5 notches made in them, one above the other. And the ends of the reeds that were between the breads would rest upon the notches, so that the burden of the upper loaf should not weigh heavily on the lower ones, the shabrum, that they should break it. So like the supports, these reeds, right? These, in order to not bear such weight on the lower ones, the shabrum, that they would break. Come on, Jonas. So he says, I don't know how the Hebrew term aniyakas applies to branches, because usually it means something to clean with. It comes from the word naki. Naki means to clean. It means clean. So Rashi is just bothered by how that word means just a reed or a pole that's fastened to distribute the weight. It has nothing to do about cleaning. There are sages who would say, Kisaisav Elu Senifim, that these Kisaisav refer to branches, because they keep the bread firm and hold it so it should not break. And the Kisaisav are the reeds, and because of the bread being clean, so that they don't become moldy. In other words, it's holding up, the space in between, so that way it keeps the bread from not being moldy, clean. So it fits in with the word clean now. But Onkelos doesn't explain it that way. He says that it's something that is just bearing the weight. Okay. Asher Yusach Behem, that which it shall be covered. Asher Yechase Behem, that it shall be covered. Ba'al Kiseisav Hu Omer Asher Yusach, and it was tubes that it says with which shall be covered. Sha'ayu Olav Kamin Schach V'Kisri, they were on top of the bread as a sort of cover and a screen. B'Mokom Acher Hu Omer, elsewhere it says is Kasus Anesach, the tubes of covering. I'm not certain about that. Okay, last verse. Let's do this. Nasatis HaShulchan, and you place the Shulchan Lechem Panim, showbread, or bread with surfaces, Fanai Tamid, before me all the time. Lechem Panim Rashi, Shahiyulu Panim Rashi, it had a face to it, as I explained previously. Lechem and Seder Ma'arechaisav, And Mufurashim be'emor lakanim, and the number of bread and the order of the stacks are not explained over here, but will be later on in Parashas Emor. We'll have that in Leviticus, but not here, because we didn't have the full. We didn't explain all of the details on how this is all made and how it's stacked and so on. And that will be later on. So Rashi's just telling us that we only got partial.
Who ate the bread? 'Cause
The Kohanim did on Shabbos.
the Kohanim?
Yeah,